friend. I'm so excited to bring this episode to you by Connie today, all about decluttering our life, our environment, our mind, and how decluttering can really open up the gateway to really allowing us to implement those healthy habits we want and to reduce the stress. And so excited to talk with you today and talk with Connie. So make sure you listen in. She's, to me, one of the decluttering experts. If you really want to start decluttering your environment and your mind and just your emotions so that you can make space for the things that you want and so that you can thrive. All right, enjoy the episode and make sure you check out all her resources. And if you're looking for some health and life coaching support or even some essential oil support in this season, please reach out. I would love to see how I can support you in your decluttering process, but in being a made well woman, whether that's through my one-on-one coaching program, my business mentorship with essential oils, or even using essential oils, right? So check out the resources and links to all that below. Reach out on Instagram and Facebook, and I can't wait to hear from you. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to the Made Well Women podcast, and I am Brianna Wilkerson, your host. You know, for over half my life, I really had to pay attention to my relationship with food, with my body, and with myself. As a young girl, I just started to find my worth in my weight and my work. And I really started to define my beauty, my body, and my value in all of those things. And that led to a very not healthy way of eating, not healthy way of taking care of myself. But when I started to realize that my worth was not in my weight and that healthy living did not have to be so depriving, but it could actually be joyful, that's when I found freedom and breakthrough. And it has been my mission ever since to help women do the same. So Made Well Women is about helping other women find peace with food, create healthy habits, and use essential oils confidently. So you're going to find solo episodes, you're going to find guest interviews from time to time, and really you're just going to find a space where I can talk to you from heart to heart, woman to woman, to really support you in creating your version of food freedom, finding healthy habits that support you and your life, and using essential oils to support you along the way. And as I mentioned, I'm an essential oils lover and I'm an advocate with doTERRA, and I really want to help more and more women and homes use essential oils for your health and for women's health, their family, and their homes. So I'm so glad you're here and so glad to support you. Before you go and listen to the episode, I want you to do a couple things. One, make sure you join the Made Well Women's Health community. This is a space where you can unpack these episodes and get support on your journey, as well as follow me on Instagram because I share all about behind the scenes of my own life there as well. All right, enjoy the episode, and I can't wait to get to know you more and support you. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about decluttering, which I am in a season of decluttering as I welcome a new baby into the world. And I realize how much baby stuff I already have and all this other stuff, and just the impact that it has on our total health and total well-being. And I have the decluttering expert with me today, Connie, to talk to us about this and how that can help us kind of go from chaos to peace. So thank you so much for joining us, Connie.
Well, thanks so much, Brianna, for having me.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. I'm so excited to finally have you on the podcast to talk about this because I don't know, I think as I've become a mother where I spend a lot more time at home with my kids, it's just so easy to collect things, especially with your kids, right? You're just like, oh, a memory, this, and this. And then over time, you're like, well, I feel so stressed and I feel like there's no way to do anything. There's no way to store anything, and just how that impacts even your mind and then your body and so forth. So that's obviously just one way that decluttering can impact us. But yeah, I would love for you to just, before we get started into the conversation, tell us about you. What got you into this work of decluttering?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I always say like I'm born decluttering, which is what I mean with that is I was a kid and I had my own room. I was lucky enough to have my own room, but I always noticed that the surroundings have an effect on me. So I was not maybe the most clean kid. Like my mother always was nagging that I had to clean up. But then when I got older, I realized actually, yes, I do feel better if the room is clean or if the room is organized and so I don't know. It just became kind of like a passion of mine. So I started to also rearrange my room. Like I was maybe 7, 8 years old, pushing around my desk, or like I couldn't push around my bed so much. My room was very tiny too. Maybe that had something to do with it. Why I was so aware of when there was too much, how I felt, kind of like, and I couldn't concentrate as well, or whatever. So that's kind of how it started. But of course, back then, that was in the 70s. This ages me quite a bit. But so back then, nobody talked about decluttering. So it's not like something that we were that much aware of. And I also feel like there was probably not so much of an issue back then yet. Like the consumerism and all this, and us having these huge houses full of stuff might not have been such an issue yet. And so I went into finance when I had to pick a career. It's kind of ended up there. That's a different story. But what I noticed was too is like even in the workplace, like if our surroundings are cluttered, if it's chaotic, if our desk is chaotic, if we have to hunt for things, it just drains our energy so much, it makes us unfocused. So long story short, that's how I kind of came back to, oh, actually, that is an important part. Like I can help people with decluttering their finances or organizing their finances. But a big part is also creating environments that support us and not sabotage us. So that's how I
Yeah.
got into
Oh,
it.
I love it. I love it. It's interesting. I think my mom, when I was younger, was similar. Like I just, kept things organized, but as life got busy, I just didn't keep things as organized as much or as clean. And I think my mom pointed it out one time. She's like, when you were younger, you were so, and I was like, it's just because you get busy and you don't mean, I don't think people mean to have clutter, right? We don't mean to have
No,
these
no.
surroundings, but it's just so easy for it to pile up and for us not to realize how it's impacting us until it's kind of too late. And so you were in finance. We were both in finance. We have that in common. But you started going back to this decluttering. So like, what would you say? Like, okay, what do you do now to help people, men, women, declutter their lives? Like, what does that look like if someone was going to work with you?
Yeah, so the first thing I make them aware of is actually how they feel, because most people like start defending, like maybe even before they become my client, because once they become a client, they kind of understand already that they maybe want to make a change. But before, I often hear, oh, well, I love all my stuff or whatever. And so and I never tell anybody to get rid of anything, like that's not my place, it's your place. But what I'm helping them is making aware, how are you feeling about it, and is this really how you want to live? Or especially if we're like business owners, for example, and we have ambitions, is this really what you want to focus on? All this stuff. And also just helping them, first of all, understand how it makes them feel, and then where it holds them back. It's like there is, and I'm not saying like you should get just rid of everything and then you can move forward. That's not what I mean. But I mean, do you really need certain things in your life, or are you just not making a decision and piling them up there, not realizing what effect it has? And especially like you mentioned with children and stuff, we become sentimental, and I'm a very sentimental person. Most people are very surprised when they hear this, but you can be sentimental and still not accumulate a house full of clutter. So,
Yeah, that is so good that you pointed it out. I think because when we think of decluttering, it's like get rid of everything that doesn't matter to you, doesn't serve you. But I think what you said, starting with like, how does this actually make you feel, and how is it holding you back? So what are some of the areas that you feel like people just carry around clutter? Is it like house? Is it finances? Is it, stuff? Like what kind of areas do you like, or what are the things that we accumulate that you have found that have really had a negative effect on people, if that makes sense?
so first I want to say that just to say, to set the stage, we all have clutter. Like We literally all have clutter. I have clutter. I mean, we can say maybe a Buddhist monk up in the mountains somewhere in a monastery has no clutter. But if you live in the normal world, you most likely have clutter. Now, the question is again, what effect does it have on you? And we're all individual. So I do feel a lot of people have a lot of clutter mostly so mostly in their physical environments. That's where it's most visible. But when you dig a little bit deeper, it actually starts in the head. So I always say, like, everything starts with mental clutter, with the thoughts, and then also with maybe sometimes thinking that is not supporting you, like oh, I do this later, or oh, I don't have to deal with it now, or oh, if I would declutter, I have no time for it, when actually if you would live with less clutter, you would actually have more time. So things like this. So the most visible part is in the physical world. And that's where most people try to start making a change, which then often is more like treating the symptom instead of the cause. So it starts with the head, no? Also with the mindset, with the thinking, with sometimes habits that don't support us, that we're just doing on autopilot. So that's where we actually have to start often too. And this is also why I say, let's figure out how you feel about it, because how does it make you feel? You get to your thoughts easier. And then we can figure out, why is it even accumulating in the physical world?
I think you make such a good point. I think often as coaches, no matter what type of coach or consultant or anything you are, people are coming to us to fix the symptom, obviously. So a lot of women come to me saying, I struggle with emotional eating or weight, or like, I'm just not consistent with my healthy habits. And, that is something to be addressed. But what you're saying too, it's like, but then any habit that we have or any reality that we live in starts with something. And it actually tends to start with a belief or mindset that drove our actions to create that. And so I love how you're challenging people in that, in the sense like, yeah, I can help you declutter your house, but if I don't help you work on your mindset, when you stop working with me, you're just going to clutter it again, because there's more things, Yeah.
And it's so sad to watch, because like, of course, and I'm just the same. We're kind of, we want to have a quick fix. We want to have an easy fix. No, so then they maybe hire somebody, a professional organizer or somebody, and let them get the whole house organized and decluttered, and they pay possibly a lot of money, and then a few months later it looks the same like it did. Why? Right. Because this was just a symptom. It was not, we didn't explore what we could maybe change and what we could tweak. And I always say, like, you don't have to and you don't want to change overnight. This is not sustainable. So you want to tweak your behaviors and your habits in a way that actually automatically leads to less clutter and whatever that means in your life, like whether it's less mental clutter or less physical clutter, less digital clutter, which is now also a thing. Yes. And especially now you and I, we're creating possibly digital clutter too with podcast episodes,
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so wherever it is, we want to actually go to the root cause, because and then tweak from there, because that will actually have the big impact, not doing something like, I hear a lot, I need to set aside a weekend, or I need to set aside a week and declutter my house. And I'm always feeling like, no, this is I don't want to say a waste of time, but it is so much effort. And who wants to declutter for a whole week?
Yeah,
not me.
I have time for that. Yeah.
Who has time for that? So it never happens. So this is why I'm saying, like, one of my sayings is, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. So just start with the root cause and tweak, and it will get.
I love how you pointed that out, like our physical environment, our mental, and even our digital. And you're right, like you and I, we do a lot of things digitally, but and in same, but I realized for me, like, where does my clutter start with? And when it comes to subscribing to all these emails, listening to all these podcasts, or even my home, like keeping all these books, all this stuff, I realize sometimes it's fear. It's like fear of like, what if I need it?
it's not
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I have to go buy it again. So I'm just going to
yeah,
keep all these options here in my
yeah,
house
yeah,
versus kind of pursuing a simple life. But I think for us, particularly in the West, it's like most of us have access to things, like if we need it, it is there. So that doesn't mean we need to keep it
yes.
in our house. And so I think for me, that's my question, when you're asking, how do you feel? Like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm afraid that if I don't have
Mm-hmm.
this, that means I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
miss out on something. And so,
Yeah.
I have to ask myself, but is that true? And, just coach myself through the process. But yeah, so I think getting to the core of like, what are you afraid of? Or like, why do
Mm-hmm.
you feel all that could be a really great, like starting point, doing that deeper work.
Yeah, yeah. And that is, of course, one of the biggest fears that people also say why the clutter accumulates, because they're afraid that when they need it, they don't have it. Um, but I often wonder, it's like, do we really think this all the way through? Because you can be quick just saying, "Oh, if I get rid of it, I don't have it when I need it." Well, wait a second. When did you use it last?
Yes.
When most likely are you gonna need it again? And then also with some things, not with everything, we can ask ourselves, well, if I can see that maybe in 2 years or in 3 years I may need it again, is it then still exactly what I need then in the future, or is it maybe outdated, or is it not anymore what I want because I evolved as a human being? So it might
Yeah.
be something different. For example, with clothes, that is often
Mm-hmm.
that way, when women keep clothes until they lost the weight that they want to lose, and then I'm often saying, like, but is then really, once you get there, is that really the piece you want to proudly wear outside, or not,
Right.
and then another question is also, is like, okay, what is the trade-off? So, okay, I'm so scared to give this away because I could need it again in 3 years, or however far in the future. What is the trade-off to keep it in your life? I mean, if you do that with one or two things, it's one thing, but if you fill your whole house with it, with things that maybe I need it one day, what is the trade-off? And just being really aware of what the trade-off is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And just asking yourself, like, what's better? What you're saying is like, is it like a simplicity? I was even thinking, I mean, this is small, but like I'm trying a lot more natural detergents and making different kind. And now that my daughter has so many stains, and I realized I have like 2 or 3 kind, I'm like, okay, it was weird. It's like, I don't like having 3 options, it's like, do I really need 3 options? But it's like, okay, just you're testing it out. But then after, just have one option, So I think if you're right, it's okay to like, go to that process of like, hey, when am I going to use this? Or when did I last use it? When am I going to use it? And I do this with clothes all the time. I'm like, I used this 3 years ago. Why is it still in my closet? I'm like, oh, but you never know if they have that one event. I'm like, I don't go to those sort of events in my life right now, so.
Yeah, and even if you do, is that then really, like, by that time it might be 5 years? Do you really want to wear then to a special event? Because that's then definitely a special event, no?
Right.
You really want to wear something old that you had in your closet, all crinkled up, or is that not then something that something different that you would want to wear?
I've been doing a lot around, you probably know this too, like as an entrepreneur, money work and just like money mindset and all this sort of stuff. And often we feel like we don't have enough and all this stuff. But one of the things Denise Dunfield Thompson talks about is just like decluttering. And we're like, what does decluttering have to do with money? But it has to do with everything. But it's just like, it's like, get rid of that other stuff so you make room for the stuff you do want, right? Because it's like, how much of that is taking up space? And so so this is really great stuff. So I just want you to share, obviously we talk about health here and being made well and all that, but like what have you seen or have researched to be the impact of clutter on our overall health and well-being?
Yeah, so there is one obvious one, is like, if your house is very full with things, dust settles and collects way more, and it's also, cleaning is harder, especially if you're a busy person. Cleaning is even harder, so you may not clean as well, you may not move everything, so then you have a lot of dust, so that can have an effect on your lungs, on your breathing, especially if you maybe already asthmatic or have some health issues around that has a big effect on that. But also another area where it has a big effect, where also more and more scientific studies are done, is stress. So if we have a very busy looking surrounding, for example, let's just go, because our brain, I forgot how many thousands of impressions per second our brain has to deal with and how many it actually can process. So it has to block out a lot, which uses a lot of energy, no? So the more stuff you have, the more your brain has to work even before it ends up in your brain with blocking out. And you can feel that again, if you become aware, you can feel that how you feel. For example, if you go on vacation, you come in a hotel room, they're usually nice and serene and whatever. You feel so much better than maybe in your cluttered living room where everything lays around and you have laundry piled up to be folded and everything. So that is the first step. Then the other step is like, if you have all this stuff around, your brain can't ignore it, or your unconscious also can't ignore it. So it stresses you out, whether or not you're telling me, oh no, I'm used to it, I don't. Well, you got to the level where you're so used to be stressed that you don't even know you're stressed, you know? So it has these effects too. And in a world where we're more and more stressed by outside events that we can't control, I always say, like, this is something that you actually have control. So it also helps you with your overall well-being, because you kind of feel like, okay, I have my home in control or under control, for my surroundings are supporting me, not sabotaging me. So then I can become stronger when I go out in the world where everything is uncontrollable, no? So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Just the connection of, and, you know, even in regards to what you're saying, practically, it's going to be harder to clean because there's so many areas that are collecting dust and all that. But I love the what you pointed out around stress. I just don't think people understand. People don't like being stressed, and they're very much aware of, like, okay, I'm feeling stressed, but they don't really realize the impact that stress has on us behind the scenes, like what behind our brain, behind our hormones, and internally makes it harder for our body to, what we were talking about earlier, digest, makes it harder for our body, even just certain goals. Like, I have found that when women stress less, who want to lose weight or get to a healthy weight, it's like it's easier because you're stressing less, because cortisol says, hey, hold on to everything, you know? So I just,
and you're also like, you have more brain capacity to actually eat healthy, no? Like,
right.
you know that too. When you're completely stressed out, the last thing you want to think is what is now healthy to eat. So you just grab the next best thing and you throw out maybe your health goals that you're having. It doesn't always have to be weight, but it can just be, I want to eat healthy. And then you throw that out because you're so stressed. And so, and also it has a huge ripple effect. So you know how you are when you're stressed. You're short with your children. You're short most likely with your partner. You're short with yourself. Then, and that's what I then call mental and emotional clutter, because then you become short with yourself, nasty with yourself, then the emotional clutter, and then you have this downward spiral, no?
Right.
And I'm not saying you can solve all this with decluttering, but you can actually still do quite a bit, which is in your control, by actually making sure your surroundings are less stressful.
Yeah, that's so good. So, you know, what are some practical things, one or two things that people can be listening can do right now to start this process of decluttering their mind, their digital space, or even their physical environment?
Yeah. So what I would, let's turn this question around, and let's talk first what they shouldn't. And I don't like the word shouldn't, but what a lot of people feel like is what I mentioned earlier, is like, oh, I need a whole day. No, you don't. So don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I need to even block out a whole hour. Don't do that. We need to, it's like with exercising, we need to start train our decluttering muscle first a little bit. So this is another reason why I say a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. You want to start small. So maybe you pay attention to what, like when I come into my home, what stresses me out the most? Like, is it that I have nowhere to go with my handbag when I come in, or with my keys? Or is it because I can't unpack my groceries because the whole kitchen counter is just full of stuff that actually doesn't belong here? And just start, then maybe set a timer for 5 minutes. And please, please, please hear me on that. Even 5 minutes. It may sound like it makes no difference, but it does. Makes so much more difference than if you're trying to do something for 3 hours and you're wearing yourself out and then you don't do anything for 3 weeks. So rather do every day 5 minutes than one time 3 hours and then nothing for 3 weeks. I'm just starting to notice, okay, where could I do this? It's of course a longer process, but okay, so why is for example, if you want to be with the groceries, you can't unpack your groceries in the kitchen because there is no room to put any bags or anything. So ask yourself, why is all this stuff here? Does it really need to be here? Oftentimes it's there because it doesn't have a home. So why doesn't it have a home? Is it because, and just start asking yourself questions, and be careful to not, as women, we're so judgy sometimes of ourselves because we feel like we need to be perfect. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about how can I make life easier for me? How can I make my surroundings more supportive? And then find little ways how to do this. And I would find ways that you actually can commit. Commit sounds harsh. That you can see yourself actually do on a regular basis. Don't do things that need a lot of willpower every day and all that to continue doing. Rather come from a loving point and say, okay, I can see that this would help me feel better, feel less stressed, would help my children because then they are less stressed, I'm less short with them, or I'm more loving with them. And then start doing that with this why maybe also in the background. So if you know why you're doing things, not just because Connie said decluttering would be healthy, or Brianna said decluttering is good for you, or the media tells you decluttering is good for you, but because you understand for yourself why. And just start small, few minutes a day. And the second tip I would probably, which I often have to caution, is don't start with the most emotional area. A lot of people, the first thing they want to go is like, if you have children, with your baby clothes or toys or art that your child brought home from kindergarten, and you think, oh, I need to declutter here. No, don't start with these emotionally charged things. Start more with things that that are not so, like, because I said I'm very also sentimental and attached to things, and this is the hardest area to start with. Don't do that to yourself. Start with something that is more easy. Kitchen things are easier usually. Bathroom, keeping the bathroom like in a way that your morning routine goes easier. These are the things where you can start without having to make these hard emotional decisions right off the bat.
I love that. So practical. Like, right, when we talk about habits in general, no matter what type of area you're working on, starting small, which is just hard for us because we're so attracted to the big thing. We're attracted to big results, but the small stuff is what will help us get there. But also so helpful. One, know your why you're decluttering, but also don't start with the most emotionally charged place. Like, declutter the rest of the areas, and then because you got to get your heart and your mind ready for those particularly emotional things. And so like family members who maybe have passed on, you have some of their stuff, and that might be the hardest place to start there. So I love those tips. I love those tips. Thank you so much. Well, and so as we wrap up, is there anything that piece of encouragement, another, just what do you want to us to leave, those listening to leave with as they wrap up, as we wrap up?
So one thing, so besides a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away, that I say a lot, another thing I say a lot is decluttering is self-love. And self-love is often maybe a little bit of an overused term right now, but what I mean with this is just just to think, how can I make my life easier? If you have little children and you have a stressful life, the last thing you need is a sabotaging environment, no, or beating yourself up mentally. So just maybe come up with what can I do for me, instead of bubble baths that we may have no time for because it's such a, or massages and all that other things that we associate with looking after ourselves, taking care of ourselves. Taking care of ourselves could just mean making sure our environment is easy. And that's why I'm saying like decluttering is self-love, because you're looking after yourself instead of just always looking after everybody else. You're actually looking after yourself, and by doing so you're calmer, less stressed, and then you can give that love forward. No, like just as a clutter has a ripple effect, the more negative one in our life, if we're calmer, we have a positive ripple effect in our life, and it will benefit everybody.
Love that. Such great advice. Such great advice. Well, if people wanted to connect with you, whether on social, email, where can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is conniegraf.com, and Connie is with a Y, so it's CONNYGRAF.com. I also have a podcast. It's called From Chaos to Peace with Connie, where I talk about simple things that you can change, or I always say like clutter is so much more than you think. So I always find more connections to clutter, and where we can make positive changes. So that's another way. And I talk a lot about, also because you are also a business owner, I'm a business owner, I also talk about the effects in our business of clutter. Like if we're having a chaotic desk or the computer and we don't find any files because we don't have a proper system to like save and store our files. So yeah, it is a big range of topics that I talk on my podcast. So you probably find something that you want to listen to. And I'm very so I'm not the teacher with the finger and saying you have to do this. I'm just trying to nudge you to listen to yourself and find ways to make your life easier.
I love it. I love it. Yes. So check out Connie's podcast website. She has some freebies on there as well. Is there any free resource that you have other than the podcast that if people were to go download it, would really be a great place for them to start on their decluttering journey?
Yeah, so if I have one mainly for business owners right now, I'm working on another one, but that one for right now I found for business owners. But actually, you can use this even in any circumstance. So it's called How to Set Up Your Workspace for Success. It talks about how I think about how to set up your desk and your office, for example. Because one thing I noticed a lot is people have cluttered desks, and usually the stuff that is on their desk has nothing to do with what they're doing. It's just everything else. So that's how I think about, but you can use it, for example, in your kitchen. So if you're a mom and you're a homemaker and all that, you can use it in your kitchen, how to set up your kitchen. You can use it if you're a creative person, a crafts person, you can use it how to set up your craft station. It's just my philosophy on how to love yourself and creating supportive environments. So that's on my website.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Connie. It was so great to talk with you today.
Well, thanks for having me, Brianna. As you can see, I'm very passionate about
it. I know.
it.
And we need people who are passionate about this, because I do think like just in this day and age, clutter is very easy to have and we all do it, but like, how can we support each other in decluttering so we can be our healthiest and best self? So Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, enjoy the episode, and please go check out everything that Connie mentioned. Make sure you rate and review this podcast so that more women can find out about this, and go check out Connie's podcast as well.
Woo! Did you enjoy that episode? I did. I just left after recording it just saying, woo, my goodness, like, yes, let's make my life more simple. Let's declutter my thoughts. Let's declutter my house. Let's declutter my environment so that I can open up space to do the things I want to do, so that I can enjoy being in my environment and so they can contribute to the goals I have, right? So definitely check out Connie and her podcast and the different resources. So you can go to Chaos to Peace. And please, again, reach out whether you're interested in seeing how I can support you in my one-on-one health coaching practice or through essential oils and helping you be a made well woman. And that includes decluttering our mindset and our habits, right? So please reach out and at Made Well Women on Instagram or Facebook, or email madewellky gmail.com. And I can't wait to hear from you. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you on the next one. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Made Well Women podcast and enjoyed whether it was me and a solo episode or my guest thoughts on really how to help you live a healthy life and to be made well. But before you go, I want to make sure you know you're not alone. These podcasts are meant to be inspirational. They're meant to support you as you're going about your daily life. But where I have found the most transformation is one-on-one support, but also community. So make sure you join the Made Well Women's Health community, where you can process this podcast and get support in whatever aspect of a Made Well journey you're on. And also make sure you follow me on Instagram, because there you're going to also be able to see behind the scenes and just how I live my own Made Well Woman life. All right. Can't wait to support you. Can't wait to get to know you more. And again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please rate, review it. Let me know how it was for you. And the more people that rate and review the podcast, the more women that could see it. All right. That's it. Bless you. And I'll see you on the next episode.